Naked Shamanism. Welcome to With Insights Radio. I'm your host, Iggy Garcia. I will take you on a journey across the universe through shamanism, metaphysical, and holistic. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. We're going to light our candle here. Get our show started. So this is episode 189. It's the end of the world as we know it. So I want to give thanks to our ancestors. So I'm lighting this candle, giving thanks for those who came before us, those who trailblazed, those who made it possible for us to be here. Not always a pretty picture, but picture nonetheless. Give thanks for that. So we'll let this candle stay lit as the show continues. Great Spirit, I ask that you guide us in the show. Guide us to say the things we need to say. Help us to work through the energy. Help me to be clear in your message. Help me to be clear in my heart, my spirit, and my soul. And to guide us with our ancestors behind us, next to us, working with us. Oh. Okay. Of course, we're going to light a little Palo Santo. If you actually cut your Palo Santo in half, take a knife and you chop it, you get 2 Palo Santos. And it actually burns better when it's thinner. Wow, this stuff smells great. Give thanks to the Palo Santo for its contribution. So I want to welcome everybody to the show. It's September 1st. Hard to believe that we're already here and then the month is of August is complete and it's over. Just felt like it got started. It's kind of crazy how that works, but either way, wow, we're cruising right through the year. And we're getting closer to fall, and things are starting to a bit, and we're starting to get into those different types of energy. The summer fun energy is kind of waning now. We're kind of finishing up our summer gigs, some of us. Our last outdoor drum circle at Griggs is coming up here this Saturday, September 2nd, 2023. So that's going to be kind of a hit and miss because sometimes the weather stays nice and we might throw one in there just out of the blue. But for now, this is the last scheduled one that I have on the calendar because my schedule becomes very busy with other events and other things that come up as well. So we'll see how it all plays out either way. So we are here in Columbus, Ohio. For those of you who don't know, I am part of the Condor Eagle Society, the Nemanha, and I do my shamanic work here in Columbus. I teach drumming. I drum different organizations and facilities and for different organizations. And I also am a soccer coach, Coach Jones Middle School. For those of you who didn't know, I've been there for almost 23 years and pretty excited that, the season started August 1st. And we're kind of halfway through this coaching season. This will be the last month. This will be where we'll be rolling through. But that's kind of how it goes. It's as fast as it shoots in. It's as quickly as it goes. So give thanks for that. Just working with those young boys and trying to see them grow and get them in a place of where they can do better for themselves. Sometimes they find themselves in situations where, they're just little boys and they do stuff and they find themselves in learning lessons very quickly and very fast. And so that's kind of how life is. Life puts us in those situations, and sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. But nonetheless, so my topic today was just it's the end of the world as we know it. Every generation when they're doing their they're evolving into different decades and moving into different frames of their life. It's the end of the world, and it's changing. Some would literally say that the world is ending, the world is changing, and it's Armageddon and all kinds of things are going to happen. But I was reading some articles today about how the Great Depression and all the things that happened there, but they actually were saying that we're actually more depressed in this era compared to the Great Depression. That our standards of living are actually, the cost of living is way higher than it was during the Great Depression. And I found that pretty fascinating that even though, we pay more for housing, we pay more for gas, we pay more for just about everything. And yet we don't see it because we're just in our lives, right? We're living through it. So we're coming into these new energies, this new phases. And, I remember when 2020, the Mayan calendar and all that came around and it was like, oh yeah, it's going to end, blah, blah, blah. But, if you remember the story of the Mayan calendar and how that all worked, it was actually about an acceleration, a growth, a development, how the next groups of people would evolve and channel through and move through that energy. The things would simultaneously and instantly evolve much faster and quicker than the ways that it was doing than it did before. And it's hard for people to see it sometimes, but this is what happens. It happens like that. People move through this energy, and we have expectations and things that we think are going to happen, and we're not sure if that's going to happen, but nonetheless, it happens. And you know, we kind of put in this image in our head that things are supposed to happen in a weird, strange, magical way or whatever, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes the energies just open up in a way that we can't even explain. You for one thing, technology has, just grown leaps and bounds. The technology that we have today is much more advanced than the technology that we had back then. You know, part of me is like, did we really go to the moon? You know, because we can hardly get people to the moon now. We can hardly get rockets to the moon now. So I find it very interesting that, we were able to travel into space and land men on the moon. I'm not here to cause controversy, but it just makes me think, makes me wonder, that we have cell phones now. We were able to communicate, and yet we were able to communicate from space, from Earth to space in a way that is, crystal clear, I guess. We could hardly have, good self service, let alone a landline, that we were having issues with that. But I'm not trying to stir hornet's nest here, because for a lot of people, the moon landing was real and they believe that happened. I'm not too sure. I'm not saying yes or no. I just have my druthers about it, because just because of the advancement of technology and what they had there versus what we have now and what we've learned and where we're at. I'm not saying that man can't do it. It's like saying the pyramids were built by aliens, right? They weren't necessarily built by aliens. I think they were built by human beings who were just really smart and really intelligent and knew what to do. We don't give human beings enough credit. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? But there's all kinds of things. We have all these conspiracy theories, of things that happen and things that we can't explain sometimes. And quite frankly, I think that's what conspiracy theories do. When we can't explain something in a natural form, in a natural way, because we have such disdain or distrust of our personal government and how they do things and how they approach things, we create these stories in our minds of how maybe this is how it really plays out. So the world as we know it is completely different. The world that I grew up in is not nearly the same, or not even close to the world where my kids grew up or my grandkids growing up in. Most of us here, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. We didn't have any of this technology other than just our brain power to figure out and process things. Sure, there was computers, but those were for the selected few people, or it was inside a big room, the size of my basement, and now the computer, the phone is as powerful as that computer that was built in my basement. So, we had a lot of disclosure stuff. We had a lot of things that have been coming out here, in the news about aliens and how they're communicating and how they're here and how they've been here. I'm neither going to say yes or no. I don't know. Not that I need proof to know that aliens are here. In my heart, I do believe that extraterrestrials or interterrestrials do reside on our planet, and they have been here for a long time. I do believe that we do have communication with them. They walk among us. They live with us. We don't know who they are. They know who they are. And that's the way they like to keep it. Could they conquer us? Maybe they already have. Maybe the illusion is that we're going to be conquered. No, we've been conquered a long time ago. The conquest of humanity has happened many eons ago, and the system that's been implemented and put in place is what we live in. That's why we don't see it. That's why we don't feel it. That's why we're not so concerned about it. That's because when you ask people about aliens, no one gets freaked out anymore. Nobody has this. Oh wow, aliens. It's the contrary. The contrary is that oh okay cool, well, aliens, big deal. Could it be that we just watch so many movies, or we're so connected to science fiction and the things that are different than us that way it doesn't make so much sense to us anymore? It doesn't really matter. I don't know. But our world's different. The world that every generation has their thing. Every generation thinks that they're better, they're stronger, they're fast. Like saying, oh, I got a wheel, I gotta make a better wheel. Well, you can improve on the wheel, right? The wheel still goes round. Regardless of what it is, it's still round, still rolls. Different variations of that happen, where they add, technology to it, a different type of material to it. And those are kind of things that change. Those are the kind of things that are different. Those are the kind of things that, I'm talking about. So in this generation, which I'm in this generation with this generational upcoming of people, young people, and they see the world. Sometimes I see how they respond to us, and sometimes they accuse us, and they say that we didn't take care of the earth. Granted, it is our responsibility to make sure that it's sustainable and that it's good for the next generation. But at what time and what part, does that mean that we just have to be totally responsible for it? Because the responsibility falls on the next generation, right? So what was our responsibility? We have to look at it. Our responsibility is to make sure that we stayed in the flow, stayed in the energy, stayed, superpower per se. Because every generation looks at the world differently. We've had world wars. Humanity has fought. Humanity has killed. And people have done it in the name of God. People have done it just because they felt that they were entitled to. We've enslaved people. We've enslaved, animals. We've enslaved, multitudes of folks because we are the winners of the wars. The indigenous people of this country suffered greatly at the hands of, the aliens that came across the sea and, put their muskets and their horses and their ships and started to change the dynamics and terraform the world to their liking, because they did terraform the world. They brought their livestock here. They brought plants here. They brought things that were not indigenous to these lands. So they affected. So man has been changing the world ever since man has been able to walk. The illusion is we think that man is doing something new and miraculously. We're not doing anything new or anything miraculously. We're just building upon and compounding on top of the things that are already here. The next generation that comes, they're going to accuse us and they're going to blame us for not doing enough. Um, I don't know if my generation, our generation, blames the baby boomers, for not doing or not caring or not being part of it. We just decided that we're just going to move and go into the energy and work with what we have versus blaming somebody for what we don't have. Sometimes you have to work with what you have. It's like a challenge, right? It's like they put you in a cooking show and they put all these ingredients and you have to create something out of these ingredients. Life's the same way. Ingredients are thrown in front of us and we have to decide what we're going to do with these things. Can we survive? Can we live? Can we make something better of it? We talk about global warming, we talk about global cooling, we talk about all these things. But can we survive? Can we adapt versus blaming and trying to, discredit somebody? Can we usher in a new generation, a new world where we can do better? I believe we can. It's going to take some work, but there has to be a commonality between people who say, okay, this is where we're at versus like, oh my God, we were screwed, blah, blah, blah. And every generation screwed somebody or blamed somebody for what's happened. There's all kinds of things that have happened to humans, and humanity has been challenged to the brink of extinction. There are people who are extinct today because of just the ideologies and beliefs of others. There are people here, there are animals here that no longer exist because of our doing. Because we felt, well, we're better, we're stronger, we're faster. They can't conform, so they must go. Which is just, it's sad, but it happens. And we still do that today. We still do that today. We have a homeless population of people who live under bridges, who live in fields, encampments. We don't see them because we're in our nice little cozy houses usually, but if we drive by and we run into them, that's one thing. But outside in humanity, there are people who have no home. There are people who have no food. There are people who are without. Why are that way? That's a good question. We don't really truly know why they are that way. And some of them choose to be that way, but very small percentage, very small percentage. The majority of the people who are there because something has happened in their life. Something has transformed and changed their lives in a way that radically has compromised their thinking, their ability, their feelings, their emotions. We can sit here and talk about there's a homeless problem, but how do we solve the homeless problem? If it's the end of the world as we know it, what would it be? What would it be? What would it mean to embrace and to bring people who are just, dismembered from their lives and no longer part of, society, and they want to be part of society? How do we bring them into the fold? How do you bring that in? How do you say, hey, we want you to be part of this? But here's the thing. Humanity is so stuck in their own ego parts. And our ego plays such a big role in why we have all this suffering and why we see the world in a way that it is. Because we can't discern, that we're better or not better than this person. We can't separate ourselves, and we can't imagine that we could be like that. And we punish them and project onto them the feelings of us not wanting to be like them. The reason why a lot of people don't like homeless people is because they're deathly afraid that they could become homeless. You're 2 or 1 paycheck away from being homeless. Most people don't or live paycheck to paycheck. Here we're in the strongest country in the world. We live paycheck to paycheck. But we've come to the point in this evolution of America. I'm just talking about America in general. That we don't fight for anything like we used to. We don't stand up for things like we used to. Sure, we stand up and we protest and we yell and we scream, we throw, we break things. But we really don't stand up for anything. Once the weekend warrior protesting things done, we go right back to our business. Why do I know? Because I've seen this. I've been involved in things. I've been in groups and watched them. I've seen people play out the emotions and the feelings, but yet do nothing about it. Many people tell a good story, but do nothing. They stay in their cozy little houses and, in their rich little neighborhoods. And when they come out and they go help a few people, they think they've helped the world. I'm not saying you have to be Mother Teresa and embed yourself into the crowd and just do, what Mother Teresa did or any person who's given their time to help people who are less fortunate. We can all be less fortunate very quickly if we're not careful. So society changes because the people change, people adapt, or people don't change at all. Just because you don't like what you see doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't work. And sometimes we change things because we don't want to do it that way. We want to do it differently. And the political system is a very good example of that. You have a president comes in, he has agendas and he makes things better. Another president comes in, he totally wipes it out and changes it because they don't like that guy or that gal. Happens all the time. We watch it. We're witness to this. And this happens in every administration going down the line. So this is nothing new. But yet we can't compound and build on that and say, hey, let's build on this. Let's make it better. Because in the end, the people on the masses are the ones who suffer greatly when people who are in power have the control over us and dictate to us what's happening in the world. Most people don't have because the powers to be kind of want it that way. When you have people displaced, you have control of them. When you have people working paycheck to paycheck, you have control of them. You can dictate the terms. When, the minimum wage is a certain amount, you have control of them. You have CEOs that pay themselves millions and millions of dollars because they're the brain and thinking of what needs to be done. And then their employees work at a minimal because they have to make profit. They have to be able to cut costs. They have to be able to move and manufacture these things. There's just an unbalance in humanity. There's just an unbalance in humanity. Humans like to dominate other humans. Humans like to press onto humans and make them feel uncomfortable, make them feel what they need to feel. So I find it really interesting, when people berate other people and hurt other people so they can feel strong, they can feel better. You don't really gain anything when you hurt people, when you're like angry at people. The ally that you could have made and created, you're just destroying. Because people will shut down. People shut down automatically when they're berated, treated wrong. They can't be an effective human being because of what's happening. But yet humans do this all the time. I've done it. You've done it. We've all done it. Some of us indirectly and some of us directly. Some of us didn't realize we were doing it. But the world that we have created, our ancestors created, is not the same world that we have today. There are people who want to destroy the Constitution because it doesn't apply to modern day society. I don't know. Does it? Does it not? Depends who you ask. In this world today, it depends who you ask. Everything in this world, it depends who you ask. It depends who you align yourself with. Nothing's changed. This has always been around. But if you align yourself with some team 1 and team 2, and even team 1 things are team 1 and team 2 things are team 1 or team 2. Nobody wants to be 2. They just want to be the team 1. That's how crazy it gets. I mean, how can we see the world? We look at the world and the same group of people on the same patches of land can see something completely different than what another person sees. I think it's called fear. I think it's fearfulness. I think it's, the lack of vision, the lack of understanding that, it's fearful. There are people who are afraid of AI. I question AI versus that I'm afraid of it. The only thing that I'm afraid of it, one day it will control and it will take over. How that looks like, what that smells like, what that tastes like, I don't know. It will happen. Because as humanity gives away their power, because we do give away our power, in order to automate our lives and make things better, we give away things. We give pieces and parts of ourselves. So artificial intelligence is just a creation of ours, right? That we make in our own image. We give it a framework to work from. It exposes, and it resets, and it does what it needs to do. And it auto focuses on what it has to focus. The auto balance, the image settings it creates in its artificial mind. You can program something so powerful that it can believe that it's alive. We're alive, right? We believe that, we're limited. We believe that we don't have gifts. Sometimes we believe we do, sometimes we don't. But humans are gifted. All humans. There's not one human on this planet that's not gifted, that doesn't have something to offer to the world. But what happens is there are other people who don't feel like they're gifted. They don't feel like they're worthy. So they shoot everybody down with them so they can feel the worthiness and be all. Because misery enjoys company. And this is why you see, a lot of the things you see in the world. Because people decide, well, this guy, who's this guy? Who's this gal? Why do they think that they can? They're not even qualified. Blah, blah, blah. It's one thing if you're getting brain surgery, you want somebody who knows what they're doing, right? But these are specialized things where certain people have to learn certain traits. But the world is just full of critics, full of foodies, full of reviewers, full of all kinds of people who think they have the answer, or they, just because they have a disdain or dislike for something, they will destroy it. This is true. This is a true story. I know this because I lived it, I experienced it, and I've seen it, and I've witnessed it. This is how petty humans can be. If they would rather destroy everything that they have in order to be right. Did you hear what I said? They would rather destroy everything they have just to be right. That's kind of messed up, if you ask me. It's really messed up. Why would you do that? What's the point? It really bugs me when people do that just because they want to be right. When people force their religion on you, no particular religion, but just when they force it, you know who they people are. When they force on you, oh, you have to, but this is the way it is. Is it? Nothing is concrete evident that it is. We think that it is because we've told ourselves that it was. And because we think the facts that we have in front of us is there. Excuse me. But it's not that way. Stories have been passed down from eons. And people just rewrite this story constantly. Oh no, but this story has not changed because it's this way, blah, blah, blah. Everything gets changed. I can prove that fact because I work with kids. You can tell them one thing, by the time it gets to the last person, it's completely changed. Why? Because it's the way we express ourselves. It's the way we talk. It's the way we communicate. It's the way we embrace the message. I really believe that humanity, before AI or anything, wars, will actually do themselves off because we're just stupid. We're dumb. We make some really poor choices. We make poor choices because others have made poor choices and we think we can do better. And then when we don't do better, we just continue to lie. And that's what's crazy. Man goes to war. What's the point of war? We create these borders. We create these fictitious borders around the world. Because if we don't, that means other people will take. Because that has been proven that happens. And this is why we have borders. Because we can't help ourselves to want more and more and more. Because we're locust-minded humans that we think that if we can take it, we will. And so we sit here and we ponder and we look at it. And, every generation has their stuff. No, I'm not depressed. I'm not upset about how things are going with life and how things are happening with this new group of, people who are these young people who are deciding the fate of our future pretty soon. At some point, it will happen. But yet we have this old guard that has totally out of touch with what's happening in this moment because they're so delved in their old thinking and their own programming that once they figure it out, it's kind of too late. So I wonder sometimes when we have politicians that they overexceed their stay, meaning they're in office too long. Not to say that old people can't be in office. It's like saying young people can't be in office because they don't have experience. But old person, he or she are senile now, so they're not competent enough to make the decisions. But this is what happens every day. This is where we're at right now. This is what's happening in our world. We're going to make decisions here in the next year where and how we're going to travel and with who we're going to travel and how we're going to travel into the next 10, 20 years. At least the next 3 or 4 years. We're going to travel and make decisions of how we want to be led. And for me, the problem, one of the biggest issues is that humanity, especially in our country, is that we have a system that doesn't necessarily cater to everybody. The United States is an anomaly. It works because it's outside the bounds of the norms. I remember when I was growing up, it was communism and it was democracy. Let's put a republic in someone else's country. Who will we support? Our government, and you can do the research. Our government goes and interferes in other people's elections all the time. We're number one at that. For me, it was no surprise to hear that there was election fraud here in this country. No surprise at all. Why should I be surprised? Why should that surprise you? Oh my gosh. We're notorious to go into countries and want to put leaders in that we want, not that they what people want. This country is notorious to want to put leaders in. This is the end of the world as we know it. This is how we want the world to be. We'll get him out. We'll put them in. They work for us. Or at least they'll be in our favor. And this is how the game is. This is the game. This is the game of the world. Who can you get along with? Who are you willing to get along with? Do you want to get along with? It's these are difficult questions. These are difficult times. But in every generation, there's difficult times. This just happen to be our difficult times. We're on the brinks of things going very out of control. And we have some decisions to make here in the near future, how we want to see our world and our development of ourselves in our country to go in a certain way. And the reason I talk about this because all this stuff affects everybody. Everything that I'm talking about affects everyone. No one is excluded. Nobody is on their little island in Lala, woke or closed or awakening land or spiritual enlightenment land. Because no matter what happens, we all have needs and things that we have to have in order for us to survive in this on this patch of dirt that we call the USA. All of us. We all need it. All of us who live here. I'm a firm believer. When you look at this thing that happened in Maui, no one really truly knows how and what happened. At the first look, it's more like wires burned down, fields they've dropped or whatever. And then there's a whole protocol of stuff that just went haywire and wasn't followed properly. But yet this whole region burned. I mean, to the ground. I mean, it doesn't even exist anymore. It's just totally wiped out. Cars are melted from the heat, extreme heat, which I can't figure that one out. But I know fires are hot, and I get it. And then you see all those reports, and then everybody's opinions come out. Everybody starts to side with where their energy fits best. Oh, FEMA workers getting paid thousands of dollars a night to stay in 5-star hotels. Is it true? Not true? You don't even know what's true anymore. If it's true, there's something wrong with that. Because the people who survived, according to what I have witnessed and heard, is they only got $700 for their loss. Okay. All right. That bothers me. Number one, Hawaii was a sovereign country, monarchy that was opposed by the United States government. The United States government forcefully took Hawaii. And you can't sit here and deny that it didn't happen. And you can't tell me, oh, that was a long time ago. That's because that's bullshit. Because I'll stop you right there. Because if that happened tomorrow, in your house, someone says, I'll take your house. 25 years, 30 years later, I'm just going to go, well, you took my house. No, man, that's a long time ago. Don't worry about it. It's not yours anymore. It's mine now. You still don't get over that. We sit here and we pretend like people should just get over shit. Let's just get over it. That was a long time ago. That news article is from 2020. I see that crap all the time. Somebody posts an article that's relevant, that happened, because somebody wants to talk about a point, and somebody will go, oh, but that's an old post. That's not relevant now. It's always relevant. Especially when it's affecting masses of people. So if we want the world to be a certain way, we have to understand that, the historical things about it also play out. Just humans may be one way a long time ago, but yet humans can be a certain way when they evolve through time. Sometimes we're judged by our past actions because we did it versus, we're not that person anymore. And a lot of times we get judged for that. And a lot of times we can go to jail for that. And there's some things from our actions that we should, be responsible and stand up for and say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. But it's only convenient when it's whoever's got the power, whoever's in the power in that moment decides. We have all these things that happen with elections. We have these things with voting. We also have our president who's involved in political scandal, but yet everybody just ignores it. Everybody just pretends like, oh well, that's the crap that destroys foundations. You'll let things slide one way, but you won't the other. Because I'll tell you, man, when the things come to your house and knock on your door and that happens, like they said, I don't want to hear you crying because you knew better, but you didn't do anything about it. Everybody thinks that some people are bad this way or bad that way. And they probably are, and they probably can be. It's all relative, and we decide how we see the world. The world is a reflection of who we are and how we project onto the world. The world doesn't show us. We draw from the world the pieces and parts that cater to our feelings and our emotions. We listen to a piece of music and we love it. We go see a band, we love it. But then the next person goes by, God, that's horrible. That's terrible. Why you listen to that? And you try to explain to them, well, it's this and that. You dance around a little bit. You try to explain to them, but yet nothing changes because in their mind, it's a piece of shit music. The music you love or the play you saw. And this is what humans do. As humans, we do this. We reframe what works for us. Him bad, him good, no good, him good, bad. No, that's not this. This is yes, that's what. We're dramatic. We're very dramatic about our feelings and emotions. But we could be loving, we could be caring if we truly wanted to be. But sometimes we don't choose to do that because it's too easy. And you know what? And sometimes we cannot be that way because no one was like that for us. I hear that all the time. Well, no one treated me right. I'm not going to act that way. Why should I submit? Why should I give in? It's not that you're giving in. Sometimes we have to say, hey, I'm going to look back. I'm going to step back and I'm going to look at this thing and we're going to approach it differently. It's, you want to be right or you want to win. You want to be right. That's kind of what it's looking like. Right now we have a chance to make this a better world for everybody, not just here in this country. But we won't do it. We won't do it because we're too busy in our own lives. We're too busy doing what we have to do. We're too busy trying to survive. We're too busy trying to make sure that we get a paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck. Because that's how they like us. Paycheck to paycheck. That's how they want us. They want to make sure that you are dependent. Sure, who's they? Well, shit. That's all we talk about now is they, them, she, him. So as soon as I say they, this is what I've always called them they. They, the government. When that was understood when I was growing up, when you said the word they, you were talking about the government. They want you like this. It meant that the rich people wanted you like that. When my generation spoke and we talked about the word they did it to us. Most people say, oh, that's the man. It's kind of like that. We understood what that meant. That term meant that. If you didn't hear, if you never knew that, you know now. I was born in 66, grew up in 70 and 80. In the 90s, I was a young adult having children. So my perspective in life is completely different. The way I interact. For me, for my generation, everything's been a learning curve. We had to come back and learn a lot of stuff. Because everything was progressing faster and quicker. It was after the Mayan calendar. They talk about progression, the speed of acceleration, the things were going to grow faster. Like I said earlier, we didn't have cell phones. We had a payphone. We had a quarter or a dime, depending what generation gap you fall in. But I had It was a dime to a quarter. I had a quarter in my pocket. If I needed to call home, I called home. But that was only for emergency. When the street lights were on, I was in trouble. I had to be back before the sunset if I was out. Now you can't even get kids to play. You can't even get kids to go outside and do. I can't even get my grandkids sometimes to do stuff unless you grab them and take them. You take a computer away from them, they freak out. You take their phone away from them, they freaking have a meltdown. It's crazy. I think it's changing a little bit, slightly. I think the generation that's coming in now, they're understanding that there has to be a balance. There was a disproportionate balance, out of balance, with technology and humanity. And I think now humanity understands that there has to be a harmonious balance between the two, because we're going to live with it. We need it, but we also can't have it own us and be dependent on us. Because if we allow it to just take over and allow it for it to be the dominant force in our life, that's not good. Not good at all. I'm looking forward to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years. Every time we move into 5 to 10 years, I get older. And so does some of my compatriots. We all get a little bit older. Because that's the reality. The reality is, one day, Iggy and a whole bunch of other people won't be here. You'll only have these videos, to go back and listen to stories and listen to how he felt or how they felt about how the world was. I look at my world and, and I think it's an amazing world when we look for the amazing things in it. If we look for the crapola in it, we will find the crapola. But if we look for the beautiful things in this life, in this world, we'll find them. They're there. And we have to embrace them when we do find them. Yet it's just so disheartening to watch so many people who like to create dysfunction for no reason. Because number one, you don't agree with their philosophy, way of thinking. Or because, in their heart, they're right. That even if they were wrong, they couldn't change their perception or perspective on that. A wise person will always say, you know what? I may be wrong. And if I am wrong, my apologies. But it's all relative, right? 2 plus 2 is not 9, right? So that's wrong. Those are absolutes. But in life's not that way. Life's not like that. We give ourselves away a lot to fit into a mold, to be part of something that we're not even aligned with. And I watch this every day. And politics and religion is probably the biggest culprit of this. Well, it's better to join them, It's better to be with them without them, But you watch it and it's like, my gosh, why do you align yourself with that if you don't even believe it? Because sometimes it's easier to be on the ship than off the ship and watching the ship floating down there and you're not on it. I sit here and I'm like, man, we pressure each other into stuff. Oh, if you don't vote, you're just giving away your vote to somebody else. I don't, that's a hyperbole. You think it's real, but it's not. In good conscience, it's better to not vote if it's not correct on either side. You'll send a stronger message if you don't versus that you do. Just because it's are given right to do that doesn't mean that it's going to be that it's correct way to do it. You also have the power and the restraint to say, no, I choose neither, because neither one is correct. But we don't do that. We don't do that. We go with the lesser of the evils. We go with the group that is lesser than the other, or better than the other in your own mind. That's such crap. When you can have so much more. It's like taking, it's like having 2 flavors of ice cream. Well, you can have vanilla or you can have chocolate. Make up your mind, because that's all you have. Or you can have vanilla bean or vanilla swirl, whatever. French vanilla or vanilla. What would you like? French vanilla or vanilla? They're both different, but they're both vanilla, right? I sat here. I see, I watch. I'm a very big observer of humanity. I'm a big observer of what happens around me. And then I play out in my head what best fits me. And then sometimes if it doesn't fit me, I won't be part of it. I would rather stand by my belief system and say, nope, I don't agree with it. I'm not going to agree with that just because I have to, because if I don't, you're going to ridicule me and punish me for that. Punish me. Punish me all you want. But I'm not going to go and put my energy into something that I don't even believe in. Let alone this one. Because of this mentality. But if you don't, then you are helping them. That's such a football mentality. That's such a sports mentality. The last time I heard things like that was like, well, don't you eat at your restaurant and don't go eat at another one's restaurant. Because then you're just dumping your money into their pocket, not yours. You test it out. You don't like it, it's fine. Usually you go eat at another restaurant because you want to learn different techniques and different styles how they do things. But humanity has become such a bandwagoner. Society's bandwagoner. Society's become a bandwagoner mentality. When someone's winning, everybody jumps on. Oh, but as soon as someone's losing, everybody jumps off. And that's kind of always been that way to some degree. Oh, wow, they suck. Oh, no, the thing is, as long as people aren't hurting people and they have their beliefs, that's one thing. And if you think that people are just going to do whatever you want them to do, they're not going to do whatever they want to do. People are creatures of habit. They do the same thing over. And this is why we continue getting the same thing, because you know what? We've been programmed. We've been told that this is what we have to do. If you don't support this and you don't follow that, then you're not part of the gang, and you're screwing the gang. And people believe this crap. People believe this stuff. I don't know. The world's changing every day. The world's changing every day, and every day we can adapt and we can change with it, or we can be left behind. And when you change with it, you have to change with a caliber or an understanding that, you know what, you have to have flexibility. You have to be able to see both sides of the fence. You can't just be one-sided. You have to understand why your brother, your sister is this way and why you are this way. The wise person will always try to understand both sides, my side and the side of the other. Doesn't mean that you have to go to the other, because sometimes the other will never see your side. But a person who's wise in their years goes, okay, I see why they act this way. I understand why they feel this way. It's not for me, but I can see why they feel that way, but it doesn't resonate with me. But I honor that they feel that way, and I respect that they're going to be that way. No, everybody's like, oh, they're just racist. They're just assholes. Those people don't know what they're talking about. You know, that's all you hear anymore. There's no conversation. Nobody talks. Nobody converses. I hardly hear it. I hardly. And nobody really wants to even touch it. Nobody wants to go there. Everybody's so afraid to get hurt and so afraid that someone's going to hurt them or someone's going to belittle them and make them feel, small for their belief. I'm a firm believer. If you believe something, believe in it. And just understand not everybody's going to believe sometimes in what you believe in. And you might be in the minority and you may be in the majority, depending where you're at and when you're with and how you're with and who you're hanging out with. And sometimes there's a moment to speak and sometimes there's a moment just to be silent. And when the moment presents itself, that's tactful and understanding so people don't see you in a light that's so awkward and differently than what you think. We could be radical and one-sided in our thinking, but that never solves anything when we're radical and one-sided in thinking. It doesn't solve it. It never works. It doesn't work because it never has worked. It still doesn't work. This is how people can be so impressionable and can be controlled, so manipulated. Because we're fragile egos, our fragile minds. And we think that we're so strong, we're so powerful, and we understand, but yet we're so weak and so vulnerable because we're so wounded in our thinking, in our feelings and our emotions, in our indoctrinations and our belief systems, that we believe that we have to be this way. Half the time the world is the way it is because we believe that that's the way the world wants us to be, and that's the way it always has been. That's the way it should be. That's why people hang on to fraternities and sororities and all these different things, because it's always been that way. Do we need that kind of stuff? No, we don't need that kind of stuff. In my opinion. Oh no, but it's tradition. It's tradition because somebody created the tradition. But there's also some people who say, hey, we've had enough. Good example. There's some schools, they've had hazing situations and, coaches have been fired because they allowed that stuff to go. Northwestern, one of the most prestigious universities in the country, right? They had hazing issues because it's always been that way. That's what we did. You know what? There comes a point where people say, I've had enough. I don't want this anymore. This serves no purpose. I tried to go along with it. I tried to understand it, but I can't give myself away. And that's why we have to create healthy limits and boundaries with other people. Because if we don't, they're going to walk all over us. They're going to take advantage of us. People know who and when they can walk over. People know when they're being walked on and when they're being stomped on, when they're being abused. There's not one person who can't distinguish that, discern that. Body, mentally able person. And that's what I'm talking about. There are some people who are not well, and there's nothing they can do. And there's nothing that they can process in that way, in that moment in time. But the majority of those who are thinking, those of who are not in that compromised state, yeah. So the world as we know it, the world will be as we want to know it. We will create the world in our own image. Because that's what humans do. We create everything in our own image until it's no more. Until it's broken down and no longer serve us. All right, guys. The world we know it is done for tonight. I hope I had some points in there that made sense. But sometimes I have to come on here and just talk about, what's on my mind as well. I try not to make the show about myself and the feelings that I feel sometimes, but sometimes I have to express, what's on my heart about how I see the world as well. I will see some of you tomorrow. I will see some of you at Ash Cave on September 10th, 11 to 4. for our Ask Gay Drum Gathering. We'll be at some other events coming up as well. So with that, I want to say goodnight, guys. Take care. Ho'oponopono mataku yasin, irisikwi. Be well, and just do the best you can. Love you guys.